for years, product roadmaps looked like feature calendars or Gantt charts and pretended that we could predict the future. They kind of gave everybody that sense of security that we can look at a piece of paper and it'll tell us what's going to be delivered when. But today they're shifting into something that's a lot more honest, it's a lot more useful, and focusing more on intent and outcomes and the results that we're trying to bring to the market as opposed to the features that we're trying to deliver, at least in some of in leading product organizations. They focus on strategic bets instead of specific rigid promises. And the real question, though, is as we are moving into this AI integrated world, how do product teams continue adapting to the shifts that are still happening? And how do you build a roadmap that can keep up with reality instead of fighting against it and becoming a hindrance to it? So let's get started by introducing our guest panel this morning. First of all, he has been called the smartest man I know, mostly by me. SVP and head of AI at Cherry. It is Misha Sulpovar here in the studio with me. Good morning, Misha.
Good morning.
And he's the godfather of product management education and the only man who can fix a roadmap with a single eyebrow raise. Welcome, Steve Johnson, the CEO of Product Growth Leaders. He draws owls, tracks earthquakes, and somehow still finds time to wrangle a bunch of CTOs into a room for breakfast once a month. President of the Atlanta CTO Club, Nandu Shah. Welcome back, Nandu. And last but not least, she keeps Product Coffee organized, informed, and occasionally sane. Our Product Coffee librarian and senior product owner at Milliken, Allison Herbert. Welcome back, Allison. All right, and I'm Jason Brett. I am still waiting on someone to volunteer to introduce me, but here we are. So let's get into it. I'm going to lean over here and I'm going to start with Misha. And I sent this article out that Kelly dropped into the chat and that came from Chisel Labs. And you've had a chance to look at it and give it some thought. And what are your thoughts, especially right now, on how roadmaps continue to evolve, how they're going to continue to evolve, and how we keep up and continue to make them useful?
Yeah, it seems like, and I think the article hit on this, is that it's a continuation of a trend from very fixed execution, delivery lists, basically, to a higher level and more agile strategic direction. And I think we've been on that journey for a while. We've never really gotten to strategic roadmaps, but the article describes, at least not ubiquitously, the article describes a environment in which you have enough dynamism where you can do a lot of the client and customer discovery in some of these tools. And I think that's a great direction. I'm really excited about that, with a couple of asterisks, as I'm sure we'll get into.
Absolutely. So how about you, Steve? You've been talking roadmaps for decades. And you've seen the evolution. And how do you see teams adopting and keeping up?
Yeah, well, roadmaps are my least favorite tool. It's the one everyone wants, and they all want it to be a commitment document. It's like, even back in the day, we would do like quarters. We're going to deliver this in quarter one and this in quarter two. And, the sales team would say, well, when you say quarter two, do you mean February? It's like,
and of this year, or?
And certainly one of my stories over the years has been, you can use a month or a year, but never both. This is going to come out in September, not necessarily this September. But I think a lot of us embrace the now, next, later roadmap very quickly, because it's just like, this is what we're working on now. This is what we'll work on next. And we have no idea what the times are. But as soon as you say anything like quarter one or any sort of, horizontal timeline, people are like, oh, that's a Gantt chart. And you're like, hang on. We haven't done any resourcing. We haven't done any design. We have no idea how big this thing is. And so I'm pleased to see more and more teams adopting a more rational way of doing roadmaps. It's not about features. It's about outcomes. It's about setting bets. And it's about not making date commitments until we're ready to commit to a date. One of my favorites as well is just to say, hey, would you come over and mow my yard? And how long will that take? And you're like, well, I don't know. How big is your yard? How big is your lawnmower? Where do you live compared to me? Like, there are a lot of unknowns there. And so it's ridiculous to say, yes, it'll take me 3 hours or 1 hour or 30 seconds to do your yard, because we just don't know the scope yet.
Yeah.
Oh, and one more fun one. Salespeople say, when will you have the feature I want? And I say, well, I don't know. When are you going to close the lead I gave you?
Works both ways.
Indeed. Jason, by the way, you're not on video.
Am I not?
Product.
It's only for you.
Okay.
I'm hiding. Are we in preview in here?
There we are.
There we are. Excellent. All right. We took a couple weeks off. It's okay. Nandu, AI is changing a lot of things. It's changing a lot of expectations. How do you think that is creating or not creating pressure for CTOs as roadmaps have things constantly thrown on them with technologies that evolve faster than we can implement them?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, and there was at least one session at Product Camp that underscored this for me. I think one thing that AI is accelerating is the never-ending conflation of product management and project management. If you ask the farmer in the 1800s what he wanted, he would have said a horse that ate half as much and was twice as strong and twice as fast. And there would be no discussion of a tractor. It's product management's job to understand that tractors exist and what to do with them. It's engineering's job to know what we're capable of building right now. Engineers should have their own roadmap, their own capabilities roadmap for how to meet the vision. And then sales needs to go and sell tractors, not horses. But even in that little story, the project manager is missing, right? We can't talk about, you can talk about a September. You can't talk about this September without a project manager in the room. And no amount of new frameworks, no amount of agile methodology, no amount of AI is going to change that.
And that is where that distinction between the project manager and the product manager falls. And we talked about a few weeks ago with, the project manager, when can we actually get something done? Product manager, what should we actually get done?
Yeah. And I think, what I don't know why, but leaders of multiple disciplines, product, engineering, sales, have been, in my experience, pretty dismissive of the importance of project management. And I think we all suffer because of it. We all say, oh, well, this engineering manager can handle project management, or this product manager can handle project management. And then you're left answering, well, when am I supposed to do my real job?
Yep.
Well, that's a good point, Nandu, because it actually really underscores the whole problem with this AI hype. Yeah, I don't mean to dismiss it completely, but I'm just waiting until AI has more meaning for me, even in my daily life, right? As tools that I want to use. Everybody thinks it's going to solve all these problems. It's going to make project management easier. It's going to make compiling documents easier. It's going to make, putting your requirements together, because AI can give you an outline, so you don't have to spend too much time thinking about the outline. Just critique what AI writes. Well, okay, I get there's some shortcuts, but let's be careful how much we're loading up on product and really being careful or not careful about those lines, because then you don't do anything well. It's tough. It just underscores that whole project product conversation a little more too.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And Denise, while you're on camera, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Okay, thank you. Hi, Jason. So I come in and out of Product Coffee regularly. I met Jason 6-7 years ago. It's been great. I missed Product Camp this year due to business travel. I'm sorry, but it's nice to meet everybody. I've been in product for over 30 years. I grew up in product before it was a certified discipline, and I learned from some of the best. I've built some great organizations, or I've morphed some organizations. And most of my career has been in life and health insurance or technology solutions that support life and health process or life and health insurance data. So I like all things that cover those realms, and I'm happy to chat with anybody anytime.
Excellent. Thank you. Good to have you here, Denise. Allison, let's
Thank
jump
you.
over to you real quick. And you're in a pretty evolutionary organization going through a lot of evolution. How is AI changing the expectations for what you're doing around planning and forecasting and communication in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. I may not have a good answer. It is evolving and changing almost daily. We're being very thoughtful about how we approach and where it makes sense. And I think that's probably the most comforting part of it in the speed at which we're moving. Change can often feel very scary, but the idea that we are being very intentional about where it makes sense to tuck in and bring AI to the forefront. I was mentioning Saturday at camp with a couple of folks, just because it's everywhere doesn't mean we have to put it everywhere. Let's think about where it's going to drive the biggest value first. And so I've seen that happen at Milliken, and I'm encouraging it with my teams in the small little corner of the world that I work in daily. And I think it's really important for anybody to be thinking about, I don't have to put it everywhere, even though it is everywhere. Where does it make sense for me? Where does it make sense for my team? Where does it make sense for my company?
Very good. I'm going to pivot back over here to Misha in just a moment to kind of put a stinger on the end of this first part of the conversation. But I want to tell everybody, if this is your first time at Product Coffee, the first cup is just our opening salvo, our opening discussion every week at Product Coffee. And while we have 4 amazing panelists here to start off the discussion, as Denise knows, this is for everybody to jump in on. So we really invite and encourage you, turn on your camera. This is not a webinar. This isn't a meeting. This is a meetup. This is a community of product people here to get to know each other, build a community, and help each other improve in our careers. So turn on your camera, join us here in the Zoom, and we would love to take the opportunity to let you introduce yourself to everyone here in the community. Tell us who you are, what has your attention these days, weigh in on this topic, or let us know about a challenge that you're thinking about right now, something that you're trying to solve for in your world, specifically with a product management lens, so that we can jump in and help you out with that and bring you into our community in that way. So we've got a bunch of people on the Zoom call here. For those of you out there on YouTube, great to have you here as well. You can jump over to productcoffee.com anytime and sign up on our mailing list, and we will send you the invitations to these Zoom calls as well, so you can join us in person. So let's get those cameras turned on and join us. In just a moment, I'm going to swing back over here to Misha, though, to kind of bring it back around to the conversation we were having just a moment ago around how these rapidly evolving technologies are impacting the way we communicate what's coming, the way we communicate our plans to our stakeholders, to our customers, to the market. Is it evolving it, or is it evolving? Or is it just more of the same thing? What are your thoughts?
I would love to see it evolve. I don't see it. It's a really good idea. There's a product idea in there. But how cool would it be if your stakeholders could actually interact with your roadmap? Yeah, that, especially as the roadmap accelerates, right? Like at this point, my roadmap's a month long. I can't go any longer than that. Who knows what's going to happen after that? But the communication, I don't know. I think maybe one thing that has changed is I think there's more of an acceptance that we are living in a time of acceleration and uncertainty. So it's easier to have that conversation with clients and stakeholders to say, look, I actually don't know where we're going to be in 6 months.
Yeah.
And we need to build in that resilience. And so as a result, we have a strategic direction, and this is what it looks like. But the form that takes is going to evolve. And for me, at least, those processes haven't caught up. But that conversation's become significantly easier because there's a lot more acknowledgement. That's where we are in the cycle.
That makes a lot of sense. The way I've been thinking about it a lot is at the risk of being too reliant on frameworks, which I'm a fan of frameworks, but at the same time, at the risk of over-relying, the concept behind the combination of the outcome focus rather than the delivery focus and the now, next, later general bucketing of priorities. Say, this is the problem we're working on solving right now. We think this is what we're going to solve next. This is what we're going to go after next. And these are some options for what we'll do after that. Feels like the only way to maintain some level of sanity.
I think that's right. But then the other problem is the problem you're solving now is already solved, last week by somebody else because of how quickly startups are coming online and solutions are coming online. So I think you have to, the next and later, the later to me now is more important than ever because you're signaling where are you going as an organization, where are you going, and how are you going to fit into this, new reality. Without that, then I think you risk coming across as being reactionary or tactical. And the last thing you want as a partner right now are organizations and vendors and solutions providers that are tactical and responsive rather than strategic and engaged in the change that's happening.
I think we're going to come back around to that when we're talking later about your book and and how, honestly, I think I'm going to tie that back into drift here in a little bit as well. But let's jump over here to Steve. Steve, you got your hand up real quick.
I just wanted to agree with Misha a little bit and just recalling the number of times I was meeting with a client and they wanted to hear our roadmap, and the salesperson wanted to say, here's what's coming tomorrow, shiny object syndrome, right? But the customers were saying, no, we're making a strategic commitment to you and your product. We don't care where you're going to be in a month. We kind of want to see where you're hoping to go over 3 to 5 years. And everybody says the world moves really quickly, except I haven't found that to be the case. It's when I'm making a strategic bet, I want to know that you are forward thinking and that you're able to, deliver on the things you've committed to, but also able to shift gears when something strange like AI comes along. And so at least in my world of maybe more enterprise orientation, customers want to see where you're hoping to go as more than they want to see where you're going to go in the next release.
None do.
I'm not, I won't claim to be knowledgeable at all about product management frameworks, so excuse the innocence of my question. But in now, next, later, is there an option to say never?
Yes, absolutely. It's just not in now, next, or later.
That's the best column.
Yeah, because sometimes later is a mistake. And, Steve talking about strategy. I mean, strategy is also about saying what we're not doing.
Right.
And, from on an engineering team I had years ago, I stepped into an org that had Jira with 7 different priority levels on their tickets, P1 through P7. And let's forget for a moment that as far as I'm concerned, P1 means something's on fire and you need to drop what you're doing and do that right now, right? Because there were P1 tickets that were weeks old. But basically anything past P3 is where things went to die. And so one of the first things I said is just delete all of those. If they're important, they'll come back.
Yeah, that's what we call the backlog.
I thought backlog would be later.
It should be, but
Got it.
on the back.
You're talking about theory versus
Never.
practice. You know the difference between theory and practice? There is no difference in theory.
Here's the truth about what we're facing with AI in 2025. Your company isn't just experimenting with AI, it's already dependent on it. And it's just didn't design the dependency in the first place. People are pasting contracts into ChatGPT. They're shipping Copilot code to production. They're drafting roadmaps with LLMs. We've been talking about that. There's no consistent governance. There's no real guardrails. There's just what Misha talks about as drift today, where people are just finding a new tool and adopting it and putting it to use. And that's the danger. AI has become infrastructure that is completely ungoverned. And we're going to talk about what it looks like when a few power users look like superheroes and everyone else is overwhelmed and behind, and leadership is stuck in between, hoping for the best. So I want to welcome today and introduce, for those of you who haven't met him, our good friend, Misha Sulpovar. Misha is the Senior Vice President and Head of AI at Cherry, and he's also the author of the AI Executives Handbook. This just came out a few weeks ago. It's a great read. It's a different kind of an AI read than you're going to have encountered anywhere else. You cover quite a bit of ground from back in 3000 BC or so.
So a friend of mine told me it's a little indulgent on the history.
But it's good stuff. It's fascinating. I honestly, I think the history part could be a whole book on its own.
Yeah.
But it's really fascinating the way you put that in context. But let's get into it. Let's get into the discussion. And we're going to get, by the way, while this is titled the AI Executives Handbook, it's very much about enterprise governance. It's about adopting AI at the organizational level and getting productivity and value. But he literally wrote an entire chapter on product management in here as well, just for our product copy people, because of the kind of things that we talk about and address here on our
I spend entirely too much time with product coffee, so I couldn't leave a chapter about product management unwritten.
Excellent. And Kelly's going to drop a question in here just to kind of like help us frame the conversation in the chat. She's going to ask you what the most shadow AI thing is happening in your org that leadership has no clue about. And that's going to come back around here in a few minutes. But I want to get into the whole idea of strategy versus theater here first, just to kick this whole thing off, Misha. You called this the biggest transformation that we have seen.
Yeah.
You went through this evolution. It's not just a cloud migration. What makes this moment fundamentally different from everything else.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of hype cycles, but one of the things I've been talking about here for a few years, and one of the reasons I wanted to put that on paper is I've been in machine learning and data science for 15 years and been through a number of hype cycles, including blockchain and crypto and the ICO cycle and all of that cloud as well. And this really isn't a technical innovation cycle. It's a language innovation cycle. We don't see those often. I've never seen one in my lifetime.
Expand on that just a little bit, help folks understand.
Yeah.
When we're talking about the history, he's going to go into a lot more detail on this in the book, and it's really fun. But give us just a little taste of that.
Yeah. So if you think about what something like the printing press did, right, is it helped take information that wasn't inaccessible by the vast majority of the population and made it accessible. And it came with, I think, and you can't look at it as a standalone. You also have to look at like scientific journaling as an example, right? The ability to broadcast or project ideas across geography and connect folks that are working on similar ideas to collaborate through things like scientific journals and publishing is what brought about the scientific revolution, the industrial revolution. All of that became possible because the technology was facilitated through coordination. Before that, what you had is a monopoly on information, a monopoly on publishing. The most popular book, the Bible, was still, you couldn't get one, right?
Right.
The church had a monopoly on that for a while. What AI's done and we've built our organizations around finding specialists, sharpening their specialization and the language around that specialization, and trying to get the different departments that have different specialties to coordinate with each other to produce value, especially for a product company like a SaaS company that doesn't produce a good, it produces a knowledge output, right? Gen AI flips that on its head. You now have a translation layer, if you know how to use it, between any discipline in the organization.